Hey, Martyr.
Oh my God, hi.
Listeners want to know what's going on with your love life.
Oh my God, don't get me started. These apps have me going crazy. I'm on there for hours, but I can't seem to find a date.
Have you heard of Motto? Motto is the new no nonsense hookup app for gay and queer people.
Hookup apps have become a staple in queer culture, but they also come with the bullshit. Headless torsos, blank profiles, catfish after catfish, and I feel like I'm always scrolling the grid.
Well, on Motto, every profile is verified by a real human, and every photo has a face. Motto
Ooh,
sends you daily matches of people who match your interests and kinks. There are no fees, no ads, and no nonsense.
I love that. Sounds like my kind of app.
Get Motto today by going to the link in this episode's description or use invite code ZVOGS when signing up. That's ZVOGS when signing up.
Ooh, I think I will. Motto, gay and queer hookups without the nonsense.
Wig, did you just say wig? Wig, okay. I know, wig. I feel that already. Wig, okay. Wig, did you just say wig? Wig, okay. I am ready for my wig to go flying.
Ooh, hi kids.
Hello.
Hi.
Happy Pride Month. We're
If ish.
ish.
Oh,
We're
true.
like we're halfway
Ish.
through it. Yeah.
Well, like this is gonna be like last week of June slash beginning week of
It's
July.
still June, bitch.
Okay. Okay.
And Pride's every month.
Pride is every day.
Pride is
Every day.
I told that to an Isley customer.
Oh my
Like Pride is
God.
every day.
Oh my
It's
God.
true though.
It's
I mean,
I
it's
think
not
true.
we need
wrong.
more of that energy moving forward. The pride every day. Let's
We
let's live
do.
that this
Especially
year.
especially lately. I'm Martyr,
MC Tepper.
and this is Wig It Out, our special Pride edition. We're doing a recap of some Pride stories that are important to us, as we did
Pride
last year.
history.
Pride history
Did
with
we do it last year? I feel like we
We
skipped a year.
did.
yeah,
Oh,
we
we
did it
did?
last year. Yeah.
We did.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's been
And
a
I
whole
think this is
year.
our third one,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah. No, I definitely knew we've done it.
We have our the same special guest as last year.
Yay. Our favorite.
Mixed Gina
Hi
Tonic.
Hi.
Yay.
Thank you
TikTok
Hi.
for having me
superstar.
Thank
again.
you for coming on again.
I'm like, you're the only person that this makes sense for
Yeah.
in the best way possible. Cause I'm like, no one else
Yeah,
cares.
it's been really cool, honestly, like going to gigs recently and like being introduced as like this, usually it was like, Gina Tonic, whatever. Now it's like Gina Tonic, she's making waves on social media talking about drag history. And I think that's really cool. So I
That's
like am
cool.
happy that like that's like my new legacy. Like we're
Yeah.
Cody.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that.
We're
Um,
we're like the only nerds who care about this stuff. So
I was literally just thinking today, I was like, I'm so excited to talk with them to like the smart people and like NYC nightlife. Like I
oh my
hate
God,
to like no offense to
she thinks
anyone
we're
else.
smart. Oh my God. Um,
um,
Gina, since we last talked to you
in the past year.
past year, tell us some updates. How's your life going? What's new?
Life is great. That's a lie, but that's okay. No, things have been cool. I really have taken a focus this year, kind of like we've talked before about educating people about queer history and drag history, and have posted some things on TikTok and Instagram that have taken off and taken me to cool places. I got to work for the Walt Disney Company doing some social media work for them for The Lion King on Broadway.
Ah,
So
oh, I saw
go
that.
watch my
I
yeah,
saw
go
that.
watch my
Yeah.
video about that. Did a little review of The Lion King, and if anybody listening works in social media marketing for Broadway shows, hit me up because I am a Broadway queen and I would love to see more shows and make videos about them. So hit me up. Um, I also, by the time this airs, I think there will be like a week or so left, but I'm currently working on putting together the Museum of Drag, which is going to open. By the time this airs, it will have opened already at the Brick Ox in Williamsburg.
Oh,
But we
Huh.
are doing, yeah, we've done, I'll say in past tense, we've done exhibits about drag bands, which I'm curating. There's an exhibit about Mae West and her relationship with drag. There was an exhibit about William Dorsey Swan. Um, there is a really cool photography exhibit about drag in Berlin. So if you're listening to this the very last weekend of June, go check that out. Go to my social media for more information. But that's been my big project at the moment for this month. So yeah, things are cool. You know, you guys know me. Like, I'm always the kind of girl who's like always trying to find the cool things in the periphery of like the drag world and nightlife. Like, what is not just doing a show at a drag bar? What can I do that's different and engaging and changing the world? So that's kind of where I've been last year.
So yes, I did see your TikTok about the Lion King. I thought that was really fun. So congrats
Yeah.
on that.
Thanks.
What has been one of your like favorite topics of drag history that you've been talking about on TikTok lately?
Yeah, I mean, for me, really, I think it's been really good to talk about these drag bands that are happening in America. Really because because I guess I see this history of drag bands, and I'll get into that more in our later segment. But the truth is that, you know, drag has been banned in America previously, and all those laws were repealed. And as far as my research tells me, those laws were repealed because of protest and people being really loud about it and people getting into the streets. I don't know if you heard, there were a bunch of people who gathered at a bar in New York City called the Stonewall Inn, and they threw things like shot glasses and, you know, such. And there was
And
a
not
huge
bricks.
protest, and not bricks at all.
And not bricks.
There's a video on that on my page. Go check that out as well. I did like a debunking all the rumors about Stonewall.
There's so many. There's a lot of
There are.
Absolutely. There was, you know, was a lot of civil disobedience in the 60s and 70s, and that led to these drag bans being repealed back then. And so I am really hoping to inspire this current generation to do the same thing, you know. And we saw earlier this month, you know, Target and Bud Light putting out their pride campaigns and getting eaten alive by the conservatives and them backpedaling. And my point being, like, I think the keyboard warrior thing is just not going to cut it. It's not going to protect us. It's not going to get us our rights back when and if they get taken away. So I am just really hoping to kind of use my platform to really radicalize our generation and try to get us back out there and try to get us throwing bricks again. You know, I think that's the way, friends. Like,
and no one will die at Stonewall.
And
Thank you.
No one died?
Yeah.
No one died?
No one will die. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with, I mean, we don't have to get into personal stuff, but everything that's going on. I am more fired up than usual, which is good. I usually complain about corporate
I think
pride.
that's good.
Yeah, I think that's good too. Like, especially, I always complain about corporate pride, and I do think corporate pride at the end of the day is kind of bad. But the lack of corporations this year who haven't had a rainbow like logo at all, even like borderline bullshit like that, I'm like, oh, they're not even pretending to like us. Okay.
Yeah, that's bad.
I know. And I also hate rainbow capitalism. But I was checking to make sure I wasn't wearing like a Stoli shirt or something. I also think it's so fake, but it also does suck too. Like, at the same time, like, I do rely on the income it brings me. And like, and ask any drag artist this year, with like a few exceptions, ask any drag artist, and like, I would say literally I'm doing like 10 to 25% as many gigs as I normally do.
Yeah.
Like, it has been a substantial loss for me. And like, you know, do I really want to go to like some startup and perform I'm coming out for them? Not really. But that money is, you know, July and August are very slow months for drag economically. So the money from June is about, you know, pays for me to like go on a summer vacation and like do things that like normal people do in the summer. And it is going to be a slow year for me, and that's okay. It's okay because Pride is not about parties in the piers and horse meat discos. Pride is about throwing bricks at cops. So
Definitely.
If you haven't punched a cop today, you should.
absolutely.
You can put that on record. I don't care. I don't care if that's I don't care if
Caitlin
that's
is so annoyed with
yeah,
us.
I know.
No, I don't care.
I don't care if
Just
I'm
don't
inciting
don't
violence.
arrest me.
I know.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, it's so fun fact, kids, I'm very unemployed right now. So being unemployed during Pride Month is fun.
Right.
I have been unemployed during Pride Month before, but I've been able to like make up a lot of my needs through drag. And I mean, so far, we're only a weekend. It's been good. It's been okay.
That's fine.
But it I don't have a lot of things lined up this month than I usually do. So I'm a little concerned. And like Gina just said, the summer after it's not great for drag.
Right.
Especially I would say August because everyone leaves in August.
Yeah, no one's here.
Yeah, no one's here.
Yeah.
So
I'm always here.
it's
Me too.
Yeah.
me too. I don't leave. I'm having one vacation this year and I'm going away for literally 12 hours. So
R.I.P.
I know.
What the hell?
But yeah, I don't want to end on like a terrible note.
But enough about you. Let's go into.
I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
Caitlin.
Yeah, Caitlin, how's your Pride going? What's new?
Like Pride exhausts me every year, and I always try to like kind of avoid doing a lot of stuff for Pride, and I always end up doing a lot
Right.
of stuff. So it's okay. I don't know. I actually got off for the actual march, which
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't been off for that in like
Oh my god, you should
4 or
definitely
5
go.
years.
It's a lot of fun.
For I was gonna say for the corporate march or for
Yeah.
the stand-up march.
Yeah.
Stand-up's usually what? That's Saturday.
No,
No,
it's the same. Listen,
the
you
same
can
day.
do march
the same day.
hopping. You can go.
I'm probably
like
not doing
parallel.
either. Because
Right.
I already have tickets for nightgowns, so that's literally all I'm
Nice.
going to try to do.
Oh, that's fun. Maybe I'll try to go to nightgowns. That sounds
It's
fun.
the same week or same
It's the
day?
same day.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Boo.
I know, boo.
Boo.
You can definitely march hop. We did that last year. Because it's like at the same time, literally a street away, and it is a world of difference. It's crazy.
That's
Yeah.
so funny.
Yeah.
But the thing I like about corporate Pride is that they give you a lot of free shit. And I miss that. Because I remember I got like a million like Chipotle like free cards or whatever.
Oh, that's amazing.
I was eating Chipotle every fucking day.
I thought you were gonna like say like free like condoms. I'm like, girl, let's
They
be
give
honest,
you-
none of
they
us
give
are
you that too.
No.
And I have so many of those cheap pride flags.
Yeah, that shit I don't want. I want like I used to get really nice Kiehl's shit. That's expensive.
Ooh.
At
What
the
pride are you going to?
You gotta
Yeah.
go in the front. All right, this is the secret,
Oh.
everyone. You have to go right like in the 50s or wherever it starts, because that's when they
Oh.
still have all their stuff
She
that
goes
they
to
give
Bougie
out to
Pride.
people. That's how I used to do it. I would get like the
Right.
best shit.
Oh my
That's
god.
right, folks. This straight woman, we're stealing our free stuff.
That's right. Ally.
Yeah,
Ally.
whatever. Caitlin's like one of the best allies in the world. Like, shut up.
Ally.
Oh my God. So funny.
I'm just giving her shit because I can. But
Sure, you
I mean,
can. You
yeah,
can.
I support. It is called was it Be Gay Do Crime? So I support you, Caitlin.
Amen.
It's not
Um,
crime, it's free.
You're stealing from me. You're stealing from me. So that's a crime.
You're stealing
Go
from
on,
the
go
gays who don't get up early enough to be there on time.
I haven't done the march though in like 4 or 5 years. So
It's
I haven't-
cute. It's cool.
I haven't done. I think my last corporate march was World Pride, maybe.
Mine was too. Yeah.
And then I did stand up or the protest march. I think 2021, or maybe I did in 2020. I don't know if I did in 2021. I don't like waking up and going to Manhattan early, so
Yeah, that's fair.
valid.
Valid.
Yeah, so. Anti-ways.
all right. Let's move on.
Let's get into the meat of this episode. I think we say it all the time, but me and Caitlin started this podcast as like a queer history documentation because we're talking
Ish.
to ish. We're talking
Yeah.
to local upcoming legends, whoever. And we're just documenting drag as it is right now. So it's kind of cool to do
Before
that
it was under attack.
before it was under
Right.
attack.
No, and I think that's such a like a cool, noble thing because like whenever I go back and dig around about like queer history and drag history, a lot of the times it's like, oh yeah, such and such existed, but we don't have a lot of photos of them or we don't have a lot of record of them. And so I do think it's really amazing that like in 100 years, 200 years, like anthropologists or whoever will have a wealth of photos, videos, information because we are constantly putting it all out there.
Mhm.
So
Make
I
it
think
up
it's a
for last
great,
time.
yeah, it's a great mission to have.
Yeah, I think it's needed right now. We
Yeah.
just keep alluding to I guess
That we
the
want another Glam Award? Yes.
no, shut the fuck up. Um
We just want a nomination. That's all.
no, I'm just
I'm
saying
kidding.
it's very important right now to talk out about our history because this isn't the first time queer people have been attacked for presumably grooming children or being a menace to society, which I don't mind being a menace to society. I just don't want to be accused for the wrong
Same.
thing. Yeah, so it's not the first time we're being attacked. It's probably not gonna be the last time. But right now it's just the worst time. No,
Right.
I don't
I
think
mean, I think it's the worst time in recent times
I'll
since
say
maybe
that.
the
Since
80s, or like
um
maybe Don't Ask, Don't Tell, like
yeah,
Yeah.
we had a
gay
good
marriage ban shit.
I was gonna say I think we've had a good maybe decade
Yeah.
of
I
like
think a good decade. I mean, I may be a little older than you guys. Like I remember like all the no hate stuff and like
oh my God,
Oh
it's
yeah.
yes.
it's sad. It's sad how like it's all coming back and like it's just it I guess trends recycle every 10, 20 years and I guess this is the new one that's coming back.
We didn't
Um
ask for this Y2K
it's feeling I feel like I'm in high school again
I
and
know, it
like
really feels like
it's
that.
weird. But whatever,
Yeah.
like like Martyr said, like it's not the first time it happened. I'm sure it'll happen again in like 10 or 20 years.
Yeah. I
Um,
do you guys know like either like what was like the current tipping point? Like how did it get so bad? 'Cause
no,
I do.
I
Well,
think it's
currently,
I think it's like the trans I mean the trans bathroom
right,
bill's been like a thing for probably a decade.
no. What
Oh.
got it bad this time around
Mhm.
was all the guns in the schools. Because I talked about this on the other podcast, and
Mhm.
like Republicans were like, we need to just like distract people. We gotta change the narrative
right.
because they're gonna blame us for this. So then they just latched on to all the trans stuff.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how did the
That's so sad.
how did trans exist?
How did they discover trans?
Yeah, how did
Who
conservatives
told
like who
them?
told them? I don't like I get the connection of like trying to like get people away from like the guns issue
Yeah.
and in America, but I'm like how did they get so pinpointed on trans that like drag got involved in that case too? I mean, I can see the correlation in a conservative
like-
mind, but
Well, like it's always
We'll
been
have to-
about like, I mean, it gets complicated. Like there's
Yeah.
misogyny and all that, but it's
Yeah.
always been about
Right.
like gender roles, and like
Yeah.
gender roles are extremely important, especially with controlling people. And
Mm.
so if you're going outside the
Right.
gender roles of whoever it is, no matter what gender you identify with,
Yeah.
that is very, very scary for like the conservative mindset.
Yeah.
And so
Somebody
It's-
has
it's
to do a
easy to,
deep
like-
dive. One of us has to do a deep dive on lives of TikTok and see what their first post was.
I rather not. I rather not
oh, not
engage.
lives of TikTok. Oh my god.
I know.
I recently watched a video about Andrew Tate.
Oh god.
Not completely related to the discussion, but it showed
Kind of.
it showed how easy TikTok was being used to like and I don't like using indoctrination, but like kind of like younger men high school boys age of like how that content got to them was through
Right.
TikTok because it wasn't even Andrew Tate like posting, it was people posting his clips that just kept getting circulated and circulated. So that's how we're getting like these anti-trans like media like getting
Well,
circulated
also
so
like things
quickly.
like the Joe Rogan podcast.
Now fuck him.
No, but like so like I would work with people, this is before my current job, like who would listen to it, and like they had very specific thoughts about trans people before like it was like very a hot topic. And like they would get these like whatever their talking points were from the fucking Joe Rogan show.
Right.
And it's like who's talking to the masses and where are they getting this information?
Joe Rogan's like, I haven't listened to any of his podcasts and
I've never listened to
yeah,
any of it,
I don't plan on it. But from what I understand is that his point of view is very much like both sides are wrong, let's talk in the middle. And he approaches
which
that...
I don't disagree with in this strange way. I don't disagree with that at all.
Okay. I think like, and people see that's like polite conversation where just like, oh, he disagrees with this person, but he's civil about it. And like a lot of like conservatives think like queer people are like not being civilized in this discussion, which I'm like, I don't really think it's a discussion because we're literally fighting for our lives. But yeah, that's where like he kind of comes in where his point of view is not helpful because he doesn't put blame on the people that are actually doing harm. He just sort of like agree to disagree. And
it's like drama for drama's sake, for views and clicks, probably.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Right. That's so stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Girlies, gays, theys. It's getting bad.
Yeah. Good times.
It is. We've seen as of I think this past week, the Tennessee drag ban has been lifted, repealed, or at least deemed
or whatever it is
unconstitutional by a Trump appointed judge, which is weird.
Very shocking.
But that is good news. And we can only hope the law for right now protects us in that way, because we do have some baseline protections as a minority class, because it falls under sexuality and gender, and I'm not a lawyer, so don't quote me.
You mean in federal terms?
In federal terms, you can't be denied certain stuff based off that, or freedom of speech.
I feel like freedom of speech is the big one.
Yeah, Christians, Christians, and yeah, I'm blaming Christians, not all Christians, but I'm blaming Christians for most of this. Don't understand that freedom of speech applies to other people besides them.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's a lot of things are covered under that, especially when it's government mandated. These types of expressions are covered under that. So
see what happens.
Wow, we got really political really quickly.
I know.
I was about to tweet. I feel like we're like serving some C-SPAN realness. I love it.
I'm like, oh god, everyone's falling asleep.
I know. Well, I hope they're not falling asleep. We're talking about important shit right now.
Yeah,
so
this is current events and it affects all of us.
Yeah,
that's true.
Even you, Caitlin.
I was just about to say.
It does.
Even you,
Caitlin, the most.
Yeah.
All of Caitlin's friends are drag queens.
I know.
If I'm in jail, who's gonna edit this?
Oh, God.
So funny.
Oh my god. Well, now that we've had our political break,
should we take a break?
We should take a break.
Okay, let's
kids,
take a break.
When we get back, we're gonna talk about some queer history. We're gonna give a book report style, so I hope you're ready for some long listening.
So true.
Wig, okay.
Bye.
Bye.
I know. Wig, I feel that already. Wig, okay. Wig, did you just say wig? Wig, okay. I am ready for my wig to go flying.
And we're back.
We're back.
Ooh. Okay. We're gonna hear 3 tales of queer history. Maybe more. I don't know how many.
We don't know.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Yeah. Caitlin, what do you have for us today?
So I wanted to talk about a topic, like not a topic, it's technically a person that's kind of like very recent in like headlines, I guess. So the drag legend Heklina just recently passed away. I got to watch the memorial online, which was great because I had done a lot of research on Heklina for my book, but like it was kind of like whenever Gina talked about this a little bit, like whenever you're doing like any sort of research, it's like very limited. Like you have to kind of imagine what the hell was actually going on because there's not like just easily accessed like video or like documents on what was actually happening.
Yeah.
So the great thing about the memorial is that there was all this video, and apparently they've been working on a documentary about the club that she had that I'll go into, but that's not hasn't come out yet. But it was just nice to like physically see everything that she had worked on for since the 90s. So I'm just gonna go into the history of Heklina, and I just want to start with like my history with Heklina. So I was really lucky to have met her one time for the Drag Queens of Comedy tour in LA, produced by Sasha Soprano. It was one of the best like drag shows I've ever seen. It had like a lot of drag legends like Coco Peru. It had my late drag mother, Lady Red Couture, and Heklina and Peaches were performing together. It was really funny. It was like a really like I still think about that night. Like I can't believe I went to that. Like it was just like everybody, like not necessarily like drag race girls, like just the drag legends. And it was such a good night. And like I got to meet Heklina and Peaches after the show, and like I got a photo with them, which I cannot find. It's driving me out of my mind. This is before I had iPhones. But she was so sweet, and like it was just crazy like that I got to meet her because she usually was on the West Coast, so she didn't like really come to the East Coast like ever. So it was nice I had that opportunity. So I'm gonna go right into her history. For like before we like get into her like her specific history, I want to talk about her history with Peaches Christ, who is another drag legend. So she had a controversially named club called, I'm gonna call it T Shack for the sake of this podcast because I don't want to get canceled.
As the only trans person on this Zoom call, I'm gonna say Tranny Shack. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was the name of the club. So I'm gonna just say T Shack as I read through this. So Peaches and Heklina met at T Shack at DNA Lounge in 1997. Heklina had started T Shack in 1996, and according to Heklina, they met the following year when Peaches moved to San Francisco. They have since hosted different drag events and co-starred together in numerous Peaches Christ parody productions, including 9 to 5 Inches, Peaches and Heklina's High School Reunion, and Whatever Happened to Bianca Del Rio. Many of Peaches Christ productions have traveled across the country. Some productions have gone international, and they often feature popular RuPaul's Drag Race alumni. Heklina's untimely passing happened on the road in London as they were in rehearsals for one of Peaches' new productions. Heklina considered Peaches her drag sister in crime, while Peaches has declared Heklina the funniest person she's ever met. So like everything going on, it's just been very, very sad and upsetting, especially seeing how like Peaches having to take on everything going on because she passed away and Peaches found her, and like they were so close and they were like such a good duo. Like they were so funny on stage together, and they had done so many shows together. So it's important to mention Peaches when you talk about Heklina. So more about Heklina. Heklina was the drag persona of Stephen Grelko. I'm not good with Icelandic names. Oh, not Stephen, Stefan. Stefan was born in Minnesota, but grew up in both Iceland and the United States due to his Icelandic mother. The Icelandic volcano Hekla inspires the name Heklina. Stefan relocated to San Francisco in the 80s, where drag had no rules. Stefan began doing drag characters in the alternative parody theater scene. He says his influences have been Sherry Vine, Mistress Formica, and Lady Bunny, whom he considers rock stars. In 1996, T Shack was born. It grew to become San Francisco's longest running drag event series. Heklina posted on Facebook about T Shack. Heklina said, "The club itself, it became a legendary San Francisco institution, a bastion of alternative drag and diversity. Every walk of life came to and performed at T Shack. gay men, lesbians, drag kings, M to Fs, F to Ms, faux queens, and yes, even straight people. It won every award for best drag show in San Francisco every year, and is generally thought to have redefined drag on the West Coast. It doesn't matter and still does not what gender you were or what you had between your legs. If you were a great performer, you were welcome on the T-Shack stage. It grew to mean a great deal to a great many people. Since then, T-Shack changed their name due to the pressure of of the slur in the first part of the word, but it changed the name to Mother.
Mother.
It was moved to Oasis nightclub, which Heklina co-owns. One thing that was interesting in the memorial, they said that like Heklina was like the only drag queen bar owner, which probably is not actually true, but like definitely one of the few that exists in the United States, which was a big deal. They also talked about how like Heklina was so business minded and like really, really cared about money, which is like, you know, it's interesting because Peaches was like, I was always like the art one, and she always was the one who could afford to move to where the fuck was it? Palm Springs. So last part on the LGBT plus YouTube talk show series, Hey Queen, Heklina advised aspiring queens to form their own identity outside of YouTube, to ignore the naysayers, and to not take yourself so seriously. She also emphasized the importance of having a sense of humor while being both professional and entertaining. And that's my Heklina roundup.
Yay! Good job.
Heklina was an icon. She briefly followed me.
Oh, did she really?
Yeah, she did that weird like Instagram thing where she would like follow people randomly
and then unfollow them.
Yeah, and I'm just
That's
like,
hilarious.
okay, you're an icon. I'll forgive you for that because I usually don't have
Yeah.
tolerance for that. But
It was probably not even her.
I know. She's an icon. She's greatly missed. But her legacy lives on. Well, Drag Me to Dinner.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Drag Me.
I haven't seen that yet.
That was her last recorded performance.
Yeah,
that is so cool.
I'm being mean, but
no, I want to watch it.
Yeah,
I've heard it's not good, so that's why
I don't expect it to be good, and that's why I want to see it.
But she's an icon, so thank you.
It was cool. It was cool to see the memorial and like see all the clips, and like she really promoted like alternative drag, which I guess really was not, especially in the 90s, I guess like not a thing. It was kind of like punk rock of drag, which I feel like Brooklyn has definitely like done their own thing with that, but like I feel like Heklina kind of started it.
Right.
That's it.
Yay. Well, thank you for doing that.
R.I.P. Heklina.
Icon. I know. Did you get to watch Sherry? Because we just recently had Sherry Vine on.
Yeah. Oh my god. Freaking Jackie B. Oh my god.
Was it good?
So one of they were supposed to have 3 people with them for the memorial, and the third person like missed their plane, like they couldn't make it. And like Jackie B was just like freaking out, but hilarious. Because they sang a parody of I think it's Climb Every Mountain from Sound of Music. They did a Sound of Music. Oh no, How Do You Solve a Problem Like Heklina?
That's cute.
It was so funny. But like everyone was just making fun of Jackie B the entire show because like Jackie like that third person not being there like threw her off a lot, but it was hilarious. Also, Bendela, what?
Is that online anywhere? Can we watch that?
I don't know if so it was like a live stream.
I'm sure they saved it then.
Yeah, I don't
it's gotta be.
know if there's like if you could rewatch it, but I definitely recommend it. Also, Bendela Creme and Alaska were both there, and they did the same because Heklina was known for like her famous rim jobs, and they did the same joke for both their numbers about rimming guys on stage.
Interesting.
And it was very funny, especially the second time because Alaska was very obviously annoyed that Bendela did it first.
How is she known for her rim jobs? I'm concerned.
So she like that was like something at T-Shack that she would do on stage. So they said Heklina like loves straight men, so like they would find straight men and she would rim them on stage.
I know those cheeks ain't clean.
Yeah, no, that was like that's the whole thing.
Work.
That's
Good lipstick to do that. She must have had good lipstick.
I'm ending the podcast. Goodbye. Oh my God. All right. Enough about the
I
legend.
love the range of topics we've covered, from politics to economics to rimming. Like, there really is something
feel
for
like
everyone
that's
in this
queer
episode.
culture and
It's queer culture, baby.
yeah.
Forget a
anyway.
glam award. You guys are gonna win a Peabody award.
I know,
We
right?
should.
Nobel
We're
Peace
doing
Prize,
A plus reporting right now.
right?
Oh my God.
Pulitzer.
Well, enough about our legend, Heklina. Gina, what do you have?
R.I.P.
R.I.P. to the legend. Gina, what do you have for us?
So I hinted at it earlier in the podcast, but I want to give kind of a brief smattering of history of drag bands that have happened throughout American history. And I want to preface this conversation. This is something I struggle with as a drag historian. But of course, terms like drag, drag queen, drag king are phrases that have come into popularity mostly within the last 50, 60 years. And most of what I'm going to talk about are technically quote unquote cross-dressing bands.
Yeah.
Because, back then they didn't call it drag. And for most of the 20th century, it was female impersonation or male impersonation. But anyway,
or the T word, because a lot of people called themselves the T word.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
And that was just how you identified.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's how they identified that. And like transgender was not a word that even existed like in the lexicon.
Right. Yeah. I think transgender, was like 1972 was.
And even that it wasn't really widely used, you know?
Right. Absolutely. But anyways, in terms of what I will refer to for sake of ease as cross-dressing bands, the first that we can find was in St. Louis, Missouri, which is crazy because you think of St. Louis as a huge drag city at the moment. And that was in 1843. And so most of these laws back then basically stated more or less, because it was the 1800s, they were essentially saying you could not wear clothing that belonged to, quote, the opposite sex. Because obviously back then women didn't really wear pants anyways, unless they were cross-dressing. So it was, more easily policed back then. Obviously nowadays, if our drag bans were saying women couldn't wear pants, people would riot in the streets. So maybe they should. And so interestingly enough, that 1843 law in St. Louis was repealed in 1986. And there was a drag queen named Michelle McCausland, and she was arrested for doing a drag show at Uncle Marvin's Lounge in 1984. And the ACLU challenged that misdemeanor arrest, and that led to that law being repealed in 1986. So literally over like 150 years almost in St. Louis. That's pretty crazy. And then I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear, of course, a lot of the drag bans happening now are in very conservative states like Texas and Florida and Tennessee. But I think our listeners, if they don't follow me already on social media and haven't heard this already, I think people would be surprised to hear a lot of the early drag bans were actually in states that we think of as being bastions of drag today. Most notably in San Francisco during the Gold Rush. And I've actually done a little more research on this since I posted the video. I want to post a second video on it on TikTok. But so basically during the Gold Rush, obviously it was mostly men who were coming to California to look for gold. People were sexist back then. Women were not allowed to partake. And so that caused in these Gold Rush communities for there to be a lot of men and none or very few women. And so, the gentleman would want to drink. And, back then people loved to dance at parties. That was a big thing at the balls and such. And so, they would, and they had a bunch of gold floating around. They had some cash to burn. So they would throw these like fun, extravagant masquerade parties. And at the masquerade parties, because there weren't a lot of women for the men to dance with, some of the men would get up and drag and dance with the other men. And we only really have like anecdotal evidence about this. We don't have like firm evidence. There is some belief that in some cases, these men were doing it purely for entertainment. like how some men do drag today. And there is maybe some anecdotal evidence that some of these men were doing this as a means of exploring their gender. And this could have perhaps been the start of kind of a transgender movement back then in the gold rush era. But we do have a lot of evidence actually to the opposite of that. There was one on record, at least one person, and I'm going to dance around the phrasing here so as not to be insensitive. There was one person who was born a woman, essentially. Her name was Charlie Parkhurst. And for everyone back then knew Parkhurst as a man. Charlie lived her life as a man. She dressed like a man, and she was a stagecoach driver, which is something only men did. And it wasn't until she died that the coroner discovered that she was born a woman. So there is some anecdotal evidence of like a lot of gender swapping and cross-dressing in California during the gold rush. But as that we entered the Victorian era, you know, they were really wanting to attract families to San Francisco, and drag and cross-dressing at the time was thought of as being very indecent. So they placed a ban on cross-dressing in San Francisco, and that truly lasted until the 70s. That was repealed in the 1970s. And I'll talk a little bit more later, some theories as to why that happened. But another place in good old liberal California that also banned drag was Los Angeles. This was in the 1890s, and they had this like annual All Souls Night party, which sort of had like a similar vibe to Mardi Gras. And people were very debaucherous. The article I got this from described it as a bacchanal, which typically describes people drinking a lot and engaging in lots of sexual activity. And of course, people also cross-dressed at the time as part of the celebration and wore costumes, sometimes of the other gender. And again, as they were trying to populate early Los Angeles, this left a lot of newcomers to the city feeling very uncomfortable with this sort of very liberal, outlandish lifestyle, as one might discover in Los Angeles today. And so they also placed a ban on cross-dressing in LA at the time, which is interesting because that also stayed on the record for many, many years. And from what the research I've done, it seems that because in Hollywood, of course, they were making movies, and especially during the time of vaudeville and the silent pictures before the Hays Code, you know, there was lots of drag in film. And, you know, people like Marlene Dietrich wearing pants and men's clothing. And none of that was ever policed. None of that was ever stopped. It was fine for LA's cross-dressing laws. But what those cross-dressing laws in LA did affect, of course, were gender non-conforming people, or as we would know it today, trans people. They were, of course, affected more so than anyone dressing in drag for entertainment purposes. And that also then brings us to, of course, New York City, which I think a lot of folks may argue today is like the capital of drag. And in New York State, in the 1840s, I believe, they passed what was called a masquerade law. And essentially that banned people from dressing in exuberant costume or makeup in public spaces. And at the time that law was passed, because there were people in more upstate rural farming towns in New York who were protesting like taxes, essentially. And they were doing so by dressing up as Native Americans.
Oh.
And yeah, fun fact. And so they, of course, wanted to oppress the people from protesting. So they passed that law that kind of banned the makeup and, you know, of course, had feather headdresses. And so, of course, who else wears feather headdresses but drag queens? And so in the 1940s and 50s and 60s, when they wanted to, again, oppress queer people, they kind of took those laws from the 1800s and they kind of created their own like city ordinance in New York City, basically using those laws to say that instead of telling people you can't dress as the opposite sex, they made a fun little rule that you basically had to be wearing at any time 3 articles of clothing that pertain to your assigned sex at birth. So from what I would imagine this meant for drag performers and trans people at the time in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s in New York. What I think this meant was you probably had to, like, if you were what someone would perceive as a man dressed as a woman, for example, you'd probably have to have like men's briefs on underneath your skirt, or a men's undershirt underneath your dress, or men's socks on. And they would strip search people in the middle of the street. They would raid bars such as the Stonewall Inn, and they would check to make sure people had at least 3 articles of clothing pertaining to their assigned sex at birth. And so, of course, this was also really bad for trans and gender non-conforming people, because those laws were really heavily used to police them. And some of the research I've done has actually stated that they were really cracking down on people who were essentially assigned female at birth, more so than people assigned male at birth from the research I've done. And so, of course, I mentioned Stonewall. It is believed that a lot of the civil unrest, such as the protests at Stonewall Inn, was what caused these sort of cross-dressing bans to stop, at least in New York City. There is no like hard and firm evidence that proves that, but a lot of police records show that arrests because of cross-dressing lessened after Stonewall. And it was around that same time, the late 60s to early 70s, that we saw a lot of these other cross-dressing bans get lifted. So I really believe that it was the civil disobedience and protests and rallies that, got these drag bans to stop back then. And so, it's happening again in America. And, you look at the people who are out there. I've seen so many amazing of my fellow drag artists, in Texas and Florida, going to state houses and what's the word? Going on record and talking about their experience and the work that we're all doing, all the protests and rallies and fundraisers, it is helping. So I really think if you're a listener, especially if you're a drag artist, get out there, make your voice heard. Tweeting about it is not going to change anything. So you're either going to have to go research some local candidates and do your little voting, or if you're in a city or a state that is passing these laws, go to your city and state meetings and make your voice heard. And let's organize protests, and let's fight for our rights, friends. That's sort of my message today.
I agree
wholeheartedly.
What was I gonna say? When we were talking about topics for this episode, I was doing, some basic reading about other topics, but one of the other ones I was maybe gonna talk about was I learned about the history of tea dances, which similarly to drag bands and stuff, and just queer people being annoying to police brutality and everything. Right. Tea dances started because it was a way alcohol was banned at certain hours of the day, and it was a way to disrupt queer spaces, and to get around that, queer people were like, we'll serve tea and have a tea dance,
right?
So, and now they're still like an honored tradition, not my scene, but like, still a thing.
Actually, I want to piggyback off of that because, Martyr, you're right. But also, it was, I think, up until, I'd have to Google the year, the early 60s, it was actually illegal for gay people to drink together in public. That's sort of part of it too.
Gag. Okay, that makes sense.
And that's where, if you guys know the bar Julius in the West Village, Julius Bar is, there was essentially, what a sit-in is, like back in the 60s during civil rights. So they had a sip in where they decided, because they were basically were going to be told to leave the bar if they all sat and drank together, because they were known to be homosexuals, and they decided to stay and have their drinks at Julius Bar. And that led to gay people being allowed to drink together in public and this amazing gay bar culture. And now Julius is a gay bar, which is fabulous. I love going there.
My favorite gay bar.
Julius. Yeah, one of mine too. Honestly, and why? Because the freaking food is so
I was about to say the food.
Truly, if you are listening to this podcast and you love a good greasy cheeseburger, go to Julius Bar. It's cash only, brings cash.
Yes.
They'll make you a good well drink and a badass cheeseburger and the saltiest fries you will ever eat in your entire life. You'll eat one of your best meals in New York City, Julius Bar.
I swear more gay bars need food. Bars in general need more food. Specifically because mama, I want to eat.
Me too.
Right. It's crazy though, because I as a drag performer have been very fortunate to perform in a lot of other cities. And it's crazy because New York City is the only place, and I think there also are, God, I could talk about LGBT history all day. That's
why we have you on.
That's why we're having you on.
There are some weird well, this isn't even queer history. This is just like history in general. There are some weird prohibition era laws that I think have only just recently been repealed that I think banned you from having food, drink, and dancing in the same location, which is part of why a lot of New York City gay bars don't serve food. I know, it's crazy.
I didn't know that.
History is wild. But it's crazy because whenever I go to like even like Connecticut or like other places, Chicago, and it's
New Jersey.
All the bar, New Jersey, exactly, New Jersey. All the gay bars have food, and like a lot of places, like the gay bars are known for having like good food, and like people will like go to the gay bar to eat. So like
like straight people just straight up go.
Yeah, it is weird that the gay bars in New York don't have food, but I guess
it drives me insane. It drives me insane. I think we should all start our own bar.
Listen, I would. That is like on my. I'm in my 30s, and I am thinking about what I want to do with the rest of my life, and that is like top of the list of like things I want to do is potentially open my own.
I say we all buy Kellogg's.
Like,
all invest.
I joked about that on Twitter. I was like, someone give me $1 million, I will buy Kellogg's. And I mean, you could turn Kellogg's into truly the most sickening, like essentially imagine the Brooklyn version of Lips or Hamburger Mary's, but like make it Brooklyn. How sick would that be?
Hamburger Mary's would be so nice.
Baby.
But like not an actual Hamburger Mary's. No offense to them. Love them. Also,
I like their food. I
love their food. My mom lives near the Hamburger Mary's in Long Beach, and she goes.
I still haven't been to the Long Beach one, and like I've heard about it forever, but it was always
huge.
So out of the way.
It's definitely one of the big ones.
There was one in my hometown, and I never went to it because I didn't know what it was.
That is
at the time. This is a decade ago, girls.
So. That's fair. No, I
was
hear
in the closet. She's still in the closet.
I'm still in the closet. What are you talking about?
I know you are.
What are you talking about? Oh my God, drag bans. I hate that since I mean, Pride's always been a protest. It's always been a riot. I just hate that since I want to say like marriage equality, we've had to like we just been having to force ourselves to like keep advocating for our livelihood, our lives, and our rights. So, but people think since we got marriage equality, it's fine. But anyways,
right.
I'll get on my soapbox.
No, I'm gonna hop on your soapbox for 1 second.
Please.
It is interesting because in the early, and again, back then they called it the gay rights movement. Obviously, we'd think of it more today as queer liberation. But back then there was a similar feeling where a lot of gay people were looking for assimilation into straight society. So they were looking to
especially especially cis gay men.
Cis white men, sure.
Yeah, white men.
Yeah, amen. No, say it. I mean, listen, I, as a member of that community, I can,
that's the history.
And that is history. But there was a sort of divide there because a lot of people were saying, well, if you stop at essentially gay marriage, that prevents the whole rest of us. None of us are free until all of us are free. So it's fascinating how even. God, I can't do the math. I think at this point, it's 60 years ago. It's crazy. I used to say 50 years ago to mean the 60s, but now I have to say 60 years ago to mean the 60s.
Crazy.
But even 60 years ago, they were having the same conversations, and it's so true. Like, I think a lot of people, and a lot of allies, the whole "love is love" phrase really comes from the gay marriage movement. And
Yeah.
sure, gay marriage is legal, hopefully, for much longer. I'm a little worried about that too.
I know. Well, I mean, the Supreme Court put it on the bullseye. They're ready to take it back.
But yeah, no, I agree. Like, I think we can't stop it, gay marriage, and we can't stop it, love is love. Well,
I think this is why looking back at history is so important, because like we've had like gay leaders like Jose Zaharia. If you go into that history, like what did they do when everyone was getting arrested night after night after night? They freaking fought back. They got into the political field. They represented themselves. Like San Francisco still has like the highest, like, I guess, like representation politically when it comes to like queer people. So like it can be done. You can fight oppression. Like, you just have to learn from the past.
Period.
I have lots of thoughts. I just, when I worked at an AIDS archive, I know a lot of people around Trump election were like coming more to the archive to learn how to like properly protest the government, because it's still the only proven protest that like fought for healthcare, and we got like good healthcare or better healthcare options for people, but people were looking back on it, especially for like Black Lives Matter movement that's still ongoing, how to organize, because I agree with what you've been saying, Gina. We need to say get off the computers and get out into the physical space. So
also participating in local politics is important, because so many people don't show up.
I agree.
Because my husband's brother, he works in the political field, and like if you it doesn't take that many people to actually make a difference, because so many people are like apathetic and they don't care. So it doesn't take that many to just like, even if it's a minority group, you just need to show up and like put in the work, I guess.
These are representatives in local politics. They want our help and they want our participation. So yeah, I agree. I think getting involved in local politics is so important. Learn when learn who your city council member is.
Yes.
Learn who your state representative is, and your state your federal your congressional representatives. Learn who those people are, and learn when those elections are, and do some research.
And the primaries, especially, because primaries change everything. Look at who we have as mayor. A lot of people didn't show up. This is who we got as mayor. So
it's true.
Every election is important, especially the primaries.
I always feel weird about discussing local politics. I'm a bad person.
Well, you technically cannot vote in New York State, right?
Yeah, I vote
but
in Florida.
I mean, your vote is more necessary. I think.
Yeah, I vote in Florida.
I know so many New Yorkers who vote in like Florida or like Tennessee or Georgia. That's great. No, keep that.
I keep it.
Right.
Yeah.
But but you're still part of their district, so you can still put pressure on them, even if you're not.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
you
can like
always
physically there.
Yeah. You're still a constituent for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I always feel weird because people will shame me like, you're not voting local, and I'm like, well,
yeah.
But you're voting local to your district that you're not technically.
I think you get a pass for Florida. Like,
okay, thank you.
Because I'm from California, so like, me voting in California is a waste. So like, that's why I vote here.
Yeah.
But no, I think Florida, Texas, Alabama, Georgia.
But even
you get passes for all of those.
But even places in New York are still conservative. Like, I still vote Staten Island, and like Staten Island is insanely conservative.
Yeah. That's real. I know. Even parts of, I guess, Williamsburg too. Shit.
Yeah, Long Island. Look how they got freaking what's his
Not
face?
to shade my own people, but it's not just the Christians who are conservative. Let me tell you.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's not just the Christians.
Nope.
Oh.
It's not.
Every religion has it. You think it's not all Muslims, not all Jews, not all Christians. Like every religion has their conservative side. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's crazy because the amount of DL Jewish guys I get.
Oh, Oh,
I'm sure it's a lot. I'm sure it's a lot.
Baby.
I'm so sure. That is
Baby.
wild.
Well, especially where you live.
I know.
Oh my God. That could be a whole podcast episode. Oh my
I know,
God.
that's its own.
I would love to hear some of those stories.
Not to brag, but I have slept with a prominent figure in every religious domination.
Martyr, that is a
bringing
book.
upon world peace.
That is you could write a book about that. People would read that. That's crazy. That's an HBO series. R.I.P. HBO.
That leads into my topic a little bit.
Yeah, it does. I know.
A little bit.
Going on about bands and queer history and rioting and all that jazz, I want to talk about my favorite subsection of culture, the ballroom scene. And specifically Paris is Burning, which is one of my favorite movies. It's a comfort movie, and I'm sure both of you have seen it.
Of course.
Yes.
Many times.
At this point, I think it's like queer history 101, like it's a necessity to watch. But I feel like a lot of people don't really look into like after the movie, what happened with that, those people, that culture. So for this little segment, I wanted to talk about that a little more. But for general rule grounding, Paris is Burning is a 1990/91. The dates are always confused. Documentary about the ballroom, the East Village / West Village / Harlem ballroom scene. I say all those places because the physical balls were held in different theaters in those locations, but primarily after the success of the movie and the wave of popularity that happened with Madonna's Vogue, they eventually went back to Harlem, but there are still practiced various places throughout the city. I know for one instance, there's OTA, which is open to all, which is like an open ballroom category every week at $3 bill. I haven't made it out because I know it goes to 4 a.m. and baby, I am asleep. But I do want to go. Anyways, it is a documentary by Jenny Livingston. It's her first movie. And it's highly criticized for the appropriation of these people's story. And after the movie was bought by Miramax, I believe it's Miramax, they wanted more money. And they did fight for more money from Livingston because originally in their contract, it was mostly verbal from these cast. I don't want to call them cast members. I don't know, subjects. Is that more appropriate?
Yeah, documentary subject.
Yeah, because cast makes it sound like it's a play, and it's not.
I mean, they were part of. It's technically part of the cast list.
Yeah,
though, even though it's a true subject.
Yeah. So these subjects fought Livingston for money, and then in interviews later, she's like, "I graciously gave them." I believe she sold the rights for $250,000, and she asked the people that were involved how much money, like $55,000 for their part in the movie. And not everyone took it. I'll get into that more later. But this movie that's so important to me is so highly contentious in the ballroom scene. Because it is very much like a white savior movie. It's very much like a look at this thing I discovered, and then Livingston is not involved in the ballroom scene after 89, and doesn't really interact with the cast, the houses, anybody in the scene after that, which I think is not couth. And yeah, it's just I'll get into this a little later, but I'll talk about backlash in a little second. But I wanted to talk about the main subjects of the film. There's about I think 12 or 15 like talking heads in the movie where different cast members, subjects were talking about their lives, the scene, and just how life is being in this culture, and also being around the AIDS epidemic, the height of queer visibility, but also queer hate and queer violence. but we have about 15 key players. This movie came out 33 years ago, 32 years ago, depending.
89, right?
It came out in 90/91. It depends
Oh, okay.
on what subject you're asking. Of those 15 people, how many do you think are still alive?
I mean, I know,
think I should
so
know.
I do
You
know,
know.
so
2.
okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go over some of these people and talk about their story. And I think we're just gonna kind of dive into it. I'll go over to
Sure.
them fast because a lot of their stories sadly kind of are the same.
Tragic.
Tragically the same.
Yeah.
So our main diva, Pepa LaBeija, is the daughter of Crystal LaBeija, who famously was in the documentary The Queen, which highlighted the pageant scene of the early 60s, and it kind of led to the creation of the ball culture itself. This fact's kind of contested, but it is largely believed LaBeija is the longest running house and the first house. And Pepper is I won't even say daughter. She's more of a sister. She was also in The Queen briefly. You can see her in like a little glimpse. But she sadly passed away in 2003. I believe of cancer. A lot of these like causes of death say cancer. I can only I don't want to assume, but a lot of that times that's the straight way of saying they died of AIDS or AIDS complications. But it is also 2003, so medicine was a little better. So I'm not going to put a label on it, but you'll see the majority of these people died of cancer. Some people outright say it, but it's cancer. Next, I have written down Willie Ninja. A lot of people say he's the grandfather of voguing. I'll talk about it in a second, but another source said that voguing was invented in Rikers, of all places, for I guess prisoners to interact on I don't know what you call it, what's the open area of a prison called?
The yard, maybe?
The yard, I guess. Yeah. I don't know too much about the history. I just learned about that today, but something to look into.
That's cool. I haven't heard that.
That was
I think I vaguely heard about that.
That was said by, I believe, Lewis. He is a dancer that vogued with Madonna. He's famously in I think the Truth or Dare documentary. And they also did another documentary of all the dancers from that tour, like 20 years later. Good documentary. Don't really know the name off the top of my head, but I'm sure that would be easy to find because it's Madonna. So Willie, grandfather of Vogue, probably had the longest list. Caitlin said this earlier, has the longest list of career-wise. He did music videos, he choreographed stuff, he worked with Madonna as well, especially with Vogue.
It's probably the most successful.
Yeah, I'd say of this cluster.
Like personality.
Yeah. I feel like more people are most likely gonna know 3 names from this documentary, and it's gonna be Willie, Venus, and Dorian, and I'll get into them in a second. But Willie tragically died in 2006, also of cancer. We're seeing a trend. Next, I have Octavia Saint Laurent, the beautiful, darling face. She's the one paralleled with Venus in the documentary, of wanting to be a model, and auditioned or tried out for the model competition that's shown in the movie. I think it's the Ford Modeling Agency. I don't know if they still do that, but
that was like a big thing in like the 90s.
Yeah. And Octavia did she had a little bit of an acting role and a little bit of a modeling career, but mostly stayed in the ballroom scene, and she became the mother of Saint Laurent and won Mother of the Year at a few balls a few times. But she tragically died in 2009, again of cancer. Let me just double check that I have this correct. I don't. Octavia Octavia did die of cancer. Willie died of heart failure, which is also a sign sometimes.
Yeah.
And Pepper died of diabetes, caused complications. She is, I think, one of the oldest living of this group, besides maybe Dorian, at 54, but most of them died kind of youngish. Next I have Angie X, the mother of extravaganza, Angie. She is shown talking about Venus, her drag daughter, and she was the mother, as I said, of the House of Extravaganza. She actually died a couple years after the movie came out in 93, from cancer. And she is immortalized in the house, what do you call it? House music, by Junior Vasquez, who's a DJ popular in the 90s. He has a track just called X, and it's dedicated to Angie. It's actually a good track. I like it a lot, but highly recommend. And that kind of gets us into the girlies that died in the 90s, because a lot of them, a majority of them, not even 5 years past the movie coming out, died. And so we have Angie, and we have the next we have Kim Pandavas, who is shown being a seamstress in the movie. She's seen with Frankie Pandavas, one of the only living cast members. They had a close friendship. Kim is believed and debated to maybe be a trans man. I don't want to put that label on him, but there's like conflicting information. But died of I think a heart attack, and he was like in his 20s. So very young. Crazy about that happened. And then next I have Doreen Corey, the grandmother. I won't say grandmother, but grand madame of the movie. She's most known for her quotable lines of the one I quote all the time. If you shoot an arrow and it goes real high, hooray for you. I love her dearly. She is notorious, as I think we should discuss right now, of having the mummy in her trunk. This is a notorious story that kind of came out after her death, which happened in 93. She also died of AIDS complications. So after she passed away, people went and were cleaning her belongings, and there was a dry cleaning jacket in it, and when they unrolled it, they found a partially decomposed person in there. And the rumors are, he also had a gunshot in him. The rumors are she killed a John that was attacking her, and didn't know what to do with the body because conflicting reports, but I think she identified as a trans woman. So she didn't know what to do, so she hid the body. It is believed to happen in the 60s, mid to late 60s, because they found a beer. I don't know if they found a beer can or beer tab of a particular brand of beer that was sold at that time, and that's how they kind of dated it. Yeah, I know. I do think they have a potential lead on who his identity was. From reports, I'm not going to say his name because I'm about to say shitty things about him. He was kind of an abusive person. So it was either John or an abusive lover. I
thought it was like an ex-husband or something. Or like something like that.
Something like that. It was conflicting reports.
Yeah, no one knows.
Yeah, that's why it's I think it's really important that Gina was talking about it earlier. We're gonna have like a wealth of photos and videos and stories in 200 years about queer people right now, but like I keep reiterating, this story is like, or this movie's from 30 years ago, and I'm having trouble like telling you the smallest
what actually
details.
happened.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows,
and it's not from a lack of like bad research. I'm looking at
is that you?
What's fascinating too about Doreen Corey is, how did she mummify a body? Like, that's crazy.
I don't know. I don't know.
Crazy.
I think my understanding, it was in a trunk, and it just stayed there for a while, and
that's
then
what I assumed.
She moved it, and I probably mummified
on its own, right?
On its own, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's been plays written about this incident. And I'll also get into another thing about it in a second. But she's one of the more notorious cases from this movie because of that, which I don't think that should define her legacy either. Because I rewatched the movie recently, and she's just like a wealth of quotes, and quotes that like people are using on Drag Race and just day-to-day life. Yeah, exactly. It's just like I want her to be known for that and not so much about the body. Especially because we don't know that much about it, and we don't know what happened.
It could have been self-defense. We don't know.
That's what I'm choosing to believe. Yeah. And I think I said earlier, but she died in 93. And then I believe I have one more person. No. The last person that I have that has passed away is the name of the movie, Paris Dupree. Tragically died in 2011. I lied, I have one more name. But one of the oldest living, I can't remember. It was either her or Peppa LaBeija actually had like a wife and a child at one point. I can't find my article at the moment, but I thought that was wild. And then one of the last people I have written down is Hector Extravaganza, who was at the time of filming the father of the House of Extravaganza. He's not the original father, who is also named Hector. He died in 85. But they started the house in 83, so he only had like a short reign. But Hector was a big AIDS advocate, and a big pillar in the community. And we lost him fairly recently in 2018. And more, I think he's more well known than some of the other folks because he's still been a pillar in the community. So people nowadays still kind of know him. He was a consultant on Pose from at least the first season, as well as some of the other living members, which are Junior LaBeija, who is the MC. He's also well known for his quips and his reading on the mic. He's known as one of the best MCs. I don't think he's still practicing, but one of the best MCs in the scene. We also have Sol Pendavis, who is the military man. And I think him and Frankie, as I said earlier, Frankie Pendavis is still alive as well. He's still like sort of the rambunctious kid that talks about Roy Rogers and mopping, and he's still alive. And then we have Carmen. I believe she's a extravaganza. She might be LaBeija. There's a lot of names, girls. But she, I don't know, so many names. And she is one of the girls on the beach when the girl is like, I am living as a transsexual. I'm as free as the wind on this beach. And the other girl that goes, but that voice is still there. That's Carmen. And she is still alive and well. She is 60 years old, and she's on Facebook and living her life.
That's iconic.
Yeah. I looked up some videos, and she was talking about like moving to London, and I was like, I love this woman. I'm glad she's still around. I don't know about Brooke Extravaganza, who is the woman that was talking about going through or just having her gender affirming surgery. But I did find out about Carmen, so that was like a good, nice surprise. The other person I could find a little bit of information about, but I cannot confirm that he is still alive, because his last post is from 2020, is the little 13-year-old boy and the who's like talking about leaving his family and like just being like really cute and chatty at 4 a.m. in Harlem. Right. And I'm not gonna say his name because they don't say it in the the film, but respect for his privacy. Um, but it is kind of easy to find, so maybe more research could be found out if he's still alive. I did baseline because I didn't want to. I was getting into Facebook and I was like, I don't know him personally, so it feels weird. Um, and then the other kid that was next to him, the 15-year-old, apparently his name was Angel. And they don't know if he's still alive, but yeah. And then our last little name, Angie Extravaganza. No, not Angie, excuse me, Venus Extravaganza, the most famous person from this documentary, because her death is tragically documented. In this. She sadly died in 1988 during filming. And not died, she was murdered. Let me state that out right. And her body was sadly found Christmas Day, 1988, after succumbing to suffocation 4 days prior. So it took a while to unfortunately find her. I did find where the hotel was today. It's in the East Village or West Village. Do you know where the Starbucks is in the West Village? Like the big one, like right next to Stonewall.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's the hotel.
Oh,
I feel weird knowing that now, but I'm like,
Right.
I mean,
where-
a lot of things happened over there, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just rewatched the film, and just watching her and Octavia talk about their dreams coming true, and like being a model, being a wife, being like living their lives as like a transgender woman, and like
Right.
one of those dreams kind of came true and the other one didn't. It was really tragic to see. Um, and that's what I want to kind of get into now. The history of this movie and like how ballroom has like been portrayed in the public conscious as of late. So I also watched the spiritual successor of Paris is Burning, How Do I Look, which was a 2006 documentary documenting the last 10 years.
I think I watched that one.
I can't recommend it as a good documentary,
Yeah.
but it is a good document to see ballroom in like early 2000s and soul when some of these legends were still alive. And overall is an uplifting kind of movie and talking about the same kind of struggles and stuff. And a lot of these clips I found out about the movie were cast members from Paris is Burning talking badly about Paris is Burning and like kind of to promote this movie, which it makes sense to me because it's like community driven. This movie was like all community like widely made. But 2006 was like at the peak of like when the community like kind of disenfranchised or just to cut themselves from Paris is Burning and its legacy. But it's come back. The legacy of this film has come back, especially with to the more recent stuff. We had Pose in 2018, that lifted direct storylines from some of these people, and especially in season 2. We got both the Dorian Corey body in the trunk story with Electra having to having a client as she was a dominatrix overdose and her having to hide the body, and same shenanigans kind of happen. And then in the midway through the season, Candy is killed in a similar way to Venus. I feel weird about these choices to because I just had a problem with like calling them cast members, but then like actually using these stories as like a fiction work is kind of weird. I don't it Ryan Murphy does this all the time with his stuff. This is a Ryan Murphy production where
Yeah.
he'll take stuff from like American culture and like make it into a plot line into like American Horror Story. So but I don't know, it feels very insidious to use trans violence or violence against trans women in such a way as a plot point, especially when it was like based off a real case. That's widely
But
known.
how much say did Brian Murphy actually have in the writers' room? Because I thought it was
I know
mainly
it was
trans writers.
so the first season more his work, and I think the trans writers mostly took over the second season and third season. Like Janet Mock was like executive producer, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
right.
so it was like a trans collective of like working on it, but I'm also like I don't know much like at a critical point, I don't know much like help it adds to the community and understanding the story.
Yeah.
Because in the show, Candy's body's like shown.
Right.
I think it's really dark. I think it's a really
Yeah, it's
dark
a bleak
episode.
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was watching it live, I was like disgusted by it, and then everybody else was like crying about the episode. Um, but it's also like trans people talking about their stories. I just think there's a better way to talk about tragedy and without it being like tragic
Porn.
trans porn or tragic porn
Trauma
for trans.
porn.
There we
Trauma
go.
porn.
There we
That's the
go.
word.
Trauma porn. Yeah.
And because I was fine with like the Dorian Corey stuff, I thought was just more like a
A
kind of like
nod.
like a funny nod, or not funny, but it did have like consequences in the show, but like a nod to that. Like, I mean, it's kind of like an urban legend.
Yeah.
It came out to be true,
Right.
but like it was an urban legend.
If you know, you know, kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
But with the violence against Candy in the similar way that like Venus actually died. Because like Venus and her house mother Angie were they both died pretty close to each other, and they're both dead named in their burial. So just sort of like I don't know. It doesn't. I don't think it helps their legacy or remembering them properly to do that. That's enough about Pose. I love Pose. It has its problems, but
I still have only like halfway through season 1.
so
I know.
season 2. I guess
I just couldn't really get into
Yeah.
it. I don't know.
Season 2. They take like several like points from Paris is Burning, and they make like
Yeah.
plots around it. Like they have a beach episode that's like modeled
Oh.
after like the beach scene in Paris is Burning.
It's making me want to like revisit Pose.
I love
It's a
Pose
good
too,
month to
Death.
watch it.
It is a great
That's
month.
true.
And then most recently and most tragically, we had Legendary that started airing in 2020, and it was a documentation of like the scene as it is now, but in a reality competition format.
Yeah, it's really more like competition setting.
And it did have one leader in the community, Laomi. Oh, it had Deshawn too, excuse me. As like the voices. Deshawn didn't really judge, but Laomi was a judge. So that helped ground it a little bit in Ballroom.
Tiny bit.
I know they have like a lot of issues with the show, and I agree with them. And then as we were talking earlier, it was taken off HBO for tax reasons. So the episodes are no longer available online. I think they might be on Tubi. I heard that recently. But I don't know. But that's kind of the legacy of Ballroom and popular culture at the moment.
Yeah.
And it kind of started with this movie and Madonna's Vogue.
Yeah.
And I understand their pain and their struggle with how it's being appropriated into like drag culture, but drag and popular culture and just straight people saying like shade, and it's crazy to me.
Sure.
But
Taylor Swift writing a lyric about, you know, shade never made anyone less gay, like that is like problematic for sure.
that was like peak white woman.
Right.
I have such respect for this film because it got to share these stories, and I think it's a very important piece of media and important piece of history to like have that captured. But it's such a small fraction, and to know that these subjects are like mostly forgotten, or they're only captured in that way, has always bothered me. So I'm glad we're having more visibility right now, but it is really tragic about what happened with Legendary that I'm worried about. Ballroom's always going to be there. They've said that countless times. They're not going anywhere. They still have their community. Um, but I'm worried about losing these important stories because the interest is dying. Because everything that's going on, and then also just how culture works. So yeah, that's me sharing.
Bleak. Sharon, I thought you were Martyr.
Oh, oh. That's my terrible share impression. Oh God.
So this has been a very bleak episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna have to throw in a break somewhere too, by the way.
Oh, great.
I should be.
Like somewhere.
Can we break right now? I'm going to the third part.
Okay.
We're taking a break, kids.
Okay.
We'll be right back. Bye.
Wig, okay. I know, wig. I feel that already. Wig, okay. Wig, did you just say wig? Wig, okay. I am ready for my wig to go flying.
And we're back.
So Gina is our special Pride every year guest. I'm sure you'll be back next year, hopefully, unless you're like super famous and we can't book you anymore.
Your words to God's ears. Let's see. 2020. Listen, in 2020, I was like, 2020 is gonna be my year.
Yeah.
And so maybe 2024 is gonna be my year. We'll see.
I'm here for it.
No, all I can say is come find me on social media. I'm always posting fun, funny, informative things. So find me Gina Tonic NYC. That's Gina Tonic, like who I am, NYC, like where I am, because I'm always drunk and I always forget those two things. And if you're listening to this when it airs, I will also be performing in with NYC Panto. For those who don't know, a panto or pantomime is a British, God, this is like dialogue from the show, a British form of theater that is done around Christmas time usually. So we did this show back in December at Don't Tell Mamas. It's called Peter Pansexual, and it's sort of just like a fun, crazy, very queer take, which is surprising because it's written by a straight white man, but very well researched, very queer take on the Peter Pan story. I star as Tinkerbell, but we're doing a special Christmas in July encore performance. I do not understand you Christians and Christmas in July, but good for you. Get that coin in the middle of the year. That will be July 13th, I believe. Let's fact check that real quick before it's put to press. July 13th at 54 Below.
Ooh, that's a big venue.
It is a big venue, and it is my debut at
oh my goodness
Below. And not to listen, go get your tickets, but also go look at the ticket website for 54 Below, because when you click on Peter Pansexual, it's not just like you know how like Broadway stars will get their name like above the title. When you go to the website, it literally says Peter Pansexual starring Gina Tonic. So it's pretty sick. It's pretty wild. I'm here for it, but that will be July 13th. It's gonna be an amazing time. It's, and most 54 Below shows are just like a bunch of people standing at music stands singing show tunes, but this is a full-on play with dialogue. There is music, and you're supporting local artists. So go check that out. I also have some other fun things that are in the works for this month. So go to my social media, go find that. And let's party. June is Gay Pride Month. July is Gay Wrath Month. So let's be angry and fight the system. Amen.
Amen. A motherfucking man. Well, thank you so much, babe, for joining us again. It's been
a pleasure. God, thank you for having me.
Anytime.
a wonderful annual tradition.
I know.
Yeah. Every year it gets more depressing.
Yeah.
It's true. That is so true. Oh my god, I'm gonna go back and listen to the old episodes.
I know, right? I've listened to the old episodes,
That
like
is
not recently,
so
but
I'm pretty sure last year I talked about AIDS. I
You
I
did.
always bring it
Yeah,
up.
for sure. So good. Iconic.
Well, anyways, I was Martyr.
I was Sue Tepper.
And this was Wigging Out. Happy Pride, bitches. Go fight the good fight.
Yay.
See you soon. Bye.
I'm C Tepper. You can follow me on Instagram at CTEPPER and read my book, The State of Drag, where I interviewed 175 drag queens from around the world. All proceeds go to charity on Amazon.com.
Ooh, I love that. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Drag the Martyr. And if you have any thoughts, comments, dick pics, send them to dragthemartyr@gmail.com.
Listen, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Pandora.
And catch up with past episodes on WERRRK.com. That's WERRRK.com. Artwork for Wigging Out was provided by Glitter Baby Online. That's Glitter Baby Online. Thank you.